hope everyone enjoyed their pizza. Now it's time to sort of talk about speed and scalability. Quite a fitting title. It's almost like we planned it. I didn't even realise we were going to be having a break halfway through, but it's worked out quite nicely. So 2 years ago, I think I briefly mentioned before the break, we launched a product to our customer base for Wavestreaming.com. Now Wavestreaming provides internet radio services, and this particular product involves a little widget which gets a bit of JavaScript that's copied and pasted onto our clients' websites. So not only were we dealing with the traffic from our clients, but we're also dealing with the traffic from their visitors to their sites too. And we'd been working on this product for a few months. We knew it was going to be popular. Our customer base were kind of crying out for something like this. So we thought, well, this is going to be a hot product for us. So we thought, well, what we need to do is we need to get a better server to cope with the increased demand. So we went to our server provider and we said, can we have a higher spec server with more processing power, more RAM, etc., etc. And we upgraded it. We were ready to go. We launched, I think it was July 2011, and this happened. So as you can see, we went from 10 million hits in July to almost 110 million hits in August. And the server just went bang every single day. If you have a look at the next slide, you can see, I think it was around sort of just after lunchtime. That's kind of like the time the US wakes up, because a lot of our client base is American. It gets to kind of like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and things just started slowing down every single day, pretty much grinding to a halt, because the server just couldn't cope with the demand. We were just getting too much traffic. It was just bottlenecking. So at this point, we'd never used a CDN before. We hadn't really dealt with scaling something to this level before. We're a small company. We don't have a huge amount of resources. So we were caught a little bit off guard. So our first reaction was to call the server company and say, look, our server's crashing, it's dying. What can we do? So immediately the server company then began tweaking things, adjusting the settings for Apache and MySQL, and sort of saying, well, why don't you have a look at your code? So we then began optimizing code and making sure things were good, and we weren't having any memory leaks or anything like this. But it was just, you could kind of spend it for hours and hours and hours just like tweaking stuff, and it would kind of get better, and we'd have some days where things wouldn't crash, and then the following day it would crash again because the traffic was just kind of going up and up and up each day. We really couldn't cope. And then they came back to us and they said, well, this server is not enough for you guys anymore. You're paying, I think we were paying like $200 or $150 a month or something for this server. They proposed this solution to us, and this is the quote from the email. Ideally, for a complete solution, you will have 2 web servers and 2 database servers running a load balancer behind a private switch, whatever that is, and a firewall. This normally starts at $2,500 a month. And we kind of looked at ourselves. We thought, this is a lot of money. I kind of thought, well, this is my business. I need to think of a solution here. I can't spend $2.5 grand a month. It's just too much of a jump from 150 or whatever it was a month. And it was, 10 times what we were spending. Customers obviously were not happy at this point, because they were paying for a product which wasn't really performing. It was slowing down every single day. They were getting, the widget just wasn't loading, or it was causing their whole site to slow down or whatever. So we kind of started tearing our hair out at this point, because we need, people had paid for this, so we needed to find a solution really, really quickly. As a small business, cost is key. If we were in a big kind of corporation or whatever, it would probably just be written off. But I love servers and technical solutions as the next guy, but this is my business, and that's $2,500 less profit, or $2,500 which could be put to a new member of staff for a new salary, or whatever. At the end of the day, the business is there to make money, to generate profit, and so we had to find another way. This was not an option at all. So what we did was we started looking around, sort of at the CDN option, and we kind of came up with this solution. And this is basically using a content delivery network, which I think, as you mentioned earlier, most people sort of showed their hands and sort of know what it is. to distribute this vast amount of traffic between lots of servers, and also eliminate some of the load from the servers because all the static content was getting served from the CDN. Okay, so obviously a CDN is a large global network of servers, so from its, from the get-go, you get a speed improvement because the content is served from the nearest user, and also it's very, very capable of handling traffic spikes and very high volumes of number of requests and visitors and bandwidth. And great speed improvement. So that kind of ticked the first box. And also, by nature of design, a CDN is highly redundant because there's no single point of failure because it's distributed. But the thing is with a CDN, it's great for serving static files, and we also needed to work out a solution to deliver, to handle the dynamic requests which are involved. So, if your site or your app needs dynamic functionality, which most do these days, how do you handle a lot of requests? The thing is with this widget, it had a lot of background requests, so we sort of started looking. Ajax, stuff like that. We started looking around. Apache hasn't really changed much for 10 years, and we discovered that it's a great web server and it goes a long way, but it's not always great for the large number of requests that we kind of needed. So we thought, how can we handle these? And what I want to do now really is just run through a whole bunch of tools which are really aimed towards as a replacement for LAMP, which is obviously Linux, Apache, MySQL and PHP. Now I apologise if any of you are Ruby developers, because we work on PHP. How many people are Ruby developers here? Oh, a couple. So how many people are PHP developers? Or okay, that's good. I imagine some of what I'm talking about can be applied to Ruby. I don't know, but this is what we've got set up anyway. So for this particular solution, as I say, most of the traffic is first of all piped through the CDN, like that diagram illustrated earlier. That delivers all the static content, static JavaScript files. The dynamic requests are then passed on to lots of small VPS nodes. We wanted to design a solution really which could easily be expanded very, very quickly and very, very cheaply. So we're not dealing with expensive load balancers or private switches or anything like that. We're just rolling out these things, and I think our total bill is something like $100 a month now, instead of the proposed $2,500. And surprisingly, we've been running this system now for nearly 2 years, and it's incredibly effective. We have very little downtime, very little problems with it. Another thing that's I thought was worth mentioning, we're becoming a great fan of SSD drives. So if we're ever rolling out new servers now, particularly if there's not a lot of data storage required, SSD is really, really good at solid state drives. So it gives you, much faster performance, and it's also especially good for databases. This thing called Nginx, who here is aware of Nginx? Okay, quite a few of you. So we've become an immense fan of Nginx. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's becoming, a huge, fast-growing kind of popular alternative to Apache or Microsoft's IIS. It's now just overtaken IIS, and if you look at the usage of on Netcraft, they've got some fantastic graphs and surveys which show web server usage, and it's amazing to see how Microsoft has really just fallen over the past few years. I'm sure some of you probably kind of know this anyway, but Nginx is fantastic because it uses an event-driven approach, so it doesn't need to spawn new processes each time. And this is a fantastic quote I got from the internet. Apache is like Microsoft Word. It has a million options, but if you need only 6, Nginx does those 6 things and does 5 of them 50 times faster. So that's and I think that's pretty true as well. We've had a huge amount of requests handled with Nginx, and it seems to never ever fall down. Low memory footprint, of course. I think the stats is something like it can hold 10,000 connections on 2.5 megabytes of memory or something crazy. So really, really effective. And also you can use it like a sort of like a Swiss Army knife tool. Really, it doesn't just act as a web server, but you can use it as a load balancer, as a reverse proxy to kind of deliver static content. Obviously, lots of popular sites, Facebook and WordPress, use it, and it's really, really grown. So we've become a big fan. The next thing is PHP-FPM. Now, This stands for Fast Process Manager, and it's effectively a different way of handling your PHP. I'm not a developer as much anymore, so I can't really explain the ins and outs of exactly how this works. But it's an excellent. My team have kind of been working on this, and it's sort of this is their research really. But it's an excellent alternative to sort of standard way of using PHP. It kind of dynamically starts and stops processes depending on the number of requests coming into the server, so it doesn't ever use more resources than necessary. And also, it's when coupled with Nginx, it's very good at serving dynamic content, preventing memory leaks, and all that kind of good stuff. Okay, the next thing is Memcached, which is effectively a tool to store data in memory. So a lot of times websites are written so every single time a page loads it just hits the database, which is kind of unnecessary really, because a lot of the stuff in a database doesn't always change that frequently. Some of it is updated very regularly. But you can store data in memory for very, very fast delivery, and makes your database load go right down, which obviously means you can use your database more. And also, I think we've kind of like skipping through that a bit quick. Okay, just go on to the next one. What was the last point there? Yeah, so kind of stuff just hovers around, ready to access very, very quickly. All right, on to the next point, Resque. Now this is a really, really good system which we've been using because a lot of our solutions involve doing lots of background stuff, okay? And if you're perhaps running like a PHP script on a cron job, which a lot of websites do, perhaps to sort of process things overnight or, I don't know, reconcile transactions or whatever it might be, often they sort of time out, or things don't get done as often as you'd like, or stuff just doesn't happen for whatever reason. We kind of found this. It was originally written for Ruby, as I understand. It's been ported to PHP, and we really like Resque because you can basically queue up tasks. So it increases the probability of things actually getting done because it kind of processes them in a systematic way. And also it logs them if they ever fail or if things ever go wrong, so you can kind of see where your breaking points are. And I really like Resque. I think we use it. I know John, who's our kind of head developer, is really a big fan, and it's been used extensively. For example, in the CDNify control panel, we've got a lot of PHP going on to kind of collect statistics, and it's quite resource intensive. So whenever we're polling stats, for example, we add them to the Resque queue, and then they just get processed, which is very nice. Monit. This is a great tool, which is effectively a process monitor. This is great because a lot of times when a server goes down, the actual machine itself doesn't go offline. It's more like MySQL is locked up, or the web server, Nginx or Apache, has crashed or gone offline. So particularly when, if it's in the middle of the night or at the weekend and you're not at the office, these things kind of crop up, we find all the time. Often all they need is just someone to log in and restart that particular process. But Monit does this automatically. It's kind of like another of these Swiss Army knife tools, so you can set it up in a lot of different ways, but we found it to be really, really valuable. It doesn't just look at the process. If the process is running, it doesn't